There's something quietly happening inside the body after 50. You may not feel it. You may not even notice it in your day-to-day life. But deep inside your veins, the very river that sustains every organ, every heartbeat, every cell, begins to move just a little slower. For most people, it starts with small changes: a heavier meal here, a late snack there, a few foods that you've always enjoyed and never questioned. But over time, they start to change the way your blood behaves. And when blood thickens, even slightly, it doesn't just move slower. It becomes heavier, stickier, more resistant. The beautiful rhythm of circulation begins to lose its ease. The body starts working harder to push that same life force through narrower channels. And with every heartbeat, a silent strain builds. Not loud, not dramatic, but constant. Many people associate thick blood with a faraway medical condition, something that only happens to others, or only if you already have a serious disease. But that's not the case. In truth, the foods you eat every single day can play a role in how fluid your blood remains. And while some of them seem harmless, even marketed as healthy, they can have subtle cumulative effects that make your blood denser over time. This isn't just about numbers on a lab test. It's about how well oxygen reaches your brain, how freely your heart beats, how resilient your body feels when you wake up each morning. Let's start with awareness, because awareness is the first medicine. When you understand what's happening inside, you regain control over your health, your energy, your future. Think about your bloodstream for a moment. Imagine a river flowing through a forest. When the water is clear and steady, everything it touches thrives. But if the water thickens, slows, and becomes dense with debris, the ecosystem starts to suffocate. Leaves decay faster. The soil loses vitality. The same happens inside you. Your blood is the ecosystem that keeps your organs alive. Its flow decides how much oxygen your brain gets, how quickly your skin regenerates, how fast your muscles recover, and how calm your heart remains. After 50, that river naturally slows. Hormonal shifts, decreased muscle mass, slower metabolism, they all play a role. But what we add to our plate can accelerate or slow that process. The truth is, some foods encourage your blood to stay thin, smooth, and free-flowing. Others do the opposite. They quietly make your blood heavier. And you wouldn't even notice until something happens. A rise in blood pressure, a feeling of fatigue, tingling in the legs, dizziness, or a sudden test result showing high viscosity. Doctors call it hyperviscosity syndrome when blood becomes too thick, but you don't need to reach that stage for the danger to begin. Even mild thickening can increase the risk of clotting, stroke, or heart strain, especially in older adults. That's why it's so important to know what's happening before it becomes visible, because thick blood isn't just about risk, it's about energy. The thicker the blood, the harder your heart must work to pump it. Imagine your heart pushing through mud instead of water. That's the extra effort your cardiovascular system makes each day without complaint. And while genetics can influence your natural clotting tendency, lifestyle choices, especially what you eat, have the power to rewrite that destiny. You don't need to live in fear. You just need to understand how to cooperate with your body instead of unknowingly working against it. Now here's the surprising part. Some of the foods that thicken your blood are the ones people often consider safe. Maybe they've been on your table for decades. Maybe your doctor once said they were fine in moderation. But what's moderation when your metabolism slows with age? What was harmless at 30 might be harmful at 60. The balance shifts, quietly and visibly, and suddenly what once nourished begins to harm. Picture a man named Robert. He's 62, active, still works part-time, and enjoys his morning routine. A cup of coffee, a slice of toast, maybe bacon on weekends. Nothing extreme. He believes he's doing fine because he doesn't smoke and takes evening walks. But what he doesn't realize is that his daily food choices are slowly thickening his blood. He notices his hands get colder easily now, that his legs feel heavier after sitting for long periods. He blames age, but inside, the real culprit is the chemistry of his plate. The foods that cause this effect do so by influencing three key systems: hydration, inflammation, and fat balance. Hydration affects how fluid your plasma, the liquid part of your blood, remains. Inflammation affects how sticky your platelets become, making it easier for small clots to form. and fat balance affects how smooth your red blood cells can move through narrow vessels. When all three are disrupted, blood thickens, and circulation becomes sluggish. It's not about fear, it's about foresight. Because when circulation slows, so does healing, so does thinking, so does vitality. That's why people over 50 often describe a strange heaviness they can't explain. It's not just in the limbs, it's in the entire system. The body begins to feel like it's running on thicker oil. But here's the good news. The same way food can worsen it, food can also reverse it. Your kitchen can be your greatest threat or your greatest therapy. So before we uncover the 4 foods that silently thicken your blood, it's important to understand what thick really means. Medically, thick blood refers to increased viscosity, a term that measures how resistant your blood is to flowing. The thicker it gets, the slower it moves, and the more pressure it places on your arteries. Over time, this affects every organ, from the brain to the kidneys. It's like forcing your car engine to run on dirty oil. It still runs, but at a cost. In this first stage of awareness, let's visualize what happens when your blood thickens. The red blood cells, which should glide freely through your vessels, start clumping together. Their flexibility decreases, which means they can't bend as easily to pass through tiny capillaries. The oxygen they carry struggles to reach its destination. The heart senses this resistance and responds by pumping harder. Over years, that extra strain contributes to fatigue, shortness of breath, or even heart enlargement. But it doesn't stop there. As blood slows, platelets, those small fragments that help you clot, begin to interact more often, like cars crowding at a traffic jam. The longer they stay close, the more likely they are to stick together, forming tiny microclots that can travel through your bloodstream. Most dissolve naturally, but in some cases they can lodge in delicate vessels, especially in the brain or lungs, causing symptoms that seem unrelated: headaches, vision changes, or shortness of breath. The body has its own defense mechanisms, of course. It tries to thin the blood naturally by producing certain compounds, such as nitric oxide, which relaxes blood vessels, and by balancing hydration through thirst. But with age, these systems weaken. You may not feel as thirsty, even when mildly dehydrated. You may not notice that your diet lacks certain natural blood-thinning compounds like omega-3s, garlic, or leafy greens. Slowly, the balance tips toward thickness. Most people ignore the early signs: the heaviness in the legs, the dizziness when standing up, the occasional nosebleed or tingling fingers. They think it's just aging, but aging is not the cause. It's simply the amplifier. The real cause lies in habits that quietly push your blood chemistry out of balance. And this brings us to the foods themselves. Each of these 4 has a different mechanism. One raises viscosity through dehydration, another through inflammation, another through fat imbalance, and another through sugar-induced stickiness. When combined, they create the perfect storm for thicker blood. And what's most concerning is that many people consume all 4 regularly. Before revealing them, take a moment to reflect on your own habits. How often do you eat packaged foods, processed meats, sugary snacks, or foods high in saturated fats? How often do you rely on refined carbohydrates, white bread, pastries, white rice, as your comfort meals? None of these seem dangerous individually. But over time, they accumulate in the bloodstream as hidden resistance. The real risk lies not in one big mistake, but in the small, repeated ones that go unnoticed. Each meal that slightly dehydrates you, each processed snack that inflames your arteries, each fatty meal that stiffens your red blood cells, and each sugary drink that makes your platelets cling together. Over weeks, months, and years, the effect compounds. That's why people often describe sudden health events, strokes, clots, chest pains, as coming out of nowhere. But nothing comes out of nowhere. The signs were always there, in the heaviness, the fatigue, the cold extremities. They just went unheard. But the body is merciful. It responds quickly to care. Even after years of slow thickening, your blood can regain fluidity within weeks of change. The vessels relax. Oxygen delivery improves. Energy returns. It's never too late to reset your circulation. The key is awareness, and that awareness begins with what's on your fork. Imagine standing in front of your kitchen pantry right now. Some of the foods there, though convenient, familiar, and comforting, may be quietly hardening your arteries and thickening your blood. The first one is often eaten at breakfast, the second hides in dinners, the third sneaks in through snacks, and the fourth disguises itself as something natural. All of them have one thing in common. They interfere with the body's natural ability to keep blood light, oxygen-rich, and free-flowing. As we move deeper into this journey, remember this truth. The goal isn't to fear food, but to understand it. Knowledge doesn't restrict freedom, it restores it. Because when you know what to avoid and what to embrace, every meal becomes medicine instead of risk. This is where science meets awareness, and where awareness becomes power. Because if you're over 50, your blood is your most loyal ally. Keep it light, and it will carry you through decades of vitality. But neglect it, and even the smallest habits will begin to weigh it down. So now, with calm curiosity and respect for the body's wisdom, we'll uncover these 4 foods. Not to create fear, but to illuminate truth. Because the more you understand what thickens your blood, the more you'll appreciate what keeps it flowing freely. It often begins with something simple, a morning ritual, a comfort food, a small indulgence that seems too innocent to cause harm. Yet for many people over 50, that's exactly where the hidden danger lies. The foods that slowly thicken your blood are rarely the ones you fear. They're the ones you trust. The ones that have been in your kitchen for decades. The ones that have become part of your identity. You've probably shared them with family, paired them with laughter, or relied on them after long days. But inside the body, they trigger a quiet reaction, one that alters the chemistry of your blood in ways you can't see or feel immediately. The first food on that list is processed meat, bacon, sausage, ham, deli cuts. These are the familiar morning favorites, the quick sandwiches, the protein we reach for when convenience outweighs caution. But behind their taste lies a combination of saturated fats, sodium nitrates, and preservatives that directly affect your blood's flow. You may think, I only eat a small portion, but here's the truth. Even small, repeated doses can change how your blood behaves. When you eat processed meat, you're not just consuming protein. You're introducing compounds that trigger low-grade inflammation inside your arteries. The preservatives, especially nitrates and nitrites, convert into nitrosamines once inside your body, which can damage the delicate lining of your blood vessels. That lining, called the endothelium, is what keeps your vessels smooth and elastic. When it's inflamed, it releases sticky molecules that attract platelets. Those platelets begin to cling to one another, forming microscopic clusters that make your blood thicker. It's not just theory. Research from Harvard and the European Heart Journal has shown that regular consumption of processed meats increases the risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 42%. Not because of cholesterol alone, but because of the impact on inflammation and blood viscosity. Inflammation thickens, it slows, it makes your bloodstream less like a river and more like syrup. Imagine the difference between pouring olive oil and honey. Your heart prefers the olive oil, smooth, light, and effortless. Processed meats push you toward the honey, dense, resistant, harder to move. And your heart pays the price every day. If you've ever woken up with swollen fingers, stiffness, or a feeling of heaviness after salty meals, that's your body signaling distress. The sodium content in processed meat pulls water out of your blood plasma into surrounding tissues, temporarily raising viscosity. Your heart then works harder to move that thicker fluid through your arteries. Over time, this small strain adds up, contributing to hypertension and clotting risk. But here's something hopeful. Your body forgives quickly. When you replace processed meats with natural proteins, like baked fish, lentils, or even eggs, your endothelial function begins to recover within weeks. Blood flow improves, inflammation markers drop. It's not about perfection, it's about correction. The moment you stop feeding inflammation, your blood begins to flow more freely. Now, let's talk about the second food, the one that's even harder to suspect. Refined carbohydrates, white bread, white rice, pastries, pancakes. They've been part of the American breakfast table for generations, but inside the bloodstream, they behave like glue. Refined carbohydrates are stripped of fiber, which means your body absorbs them almost instantly, spiking your blood sugar. When glucose levels rise sharply, the excess sugar binds to proteins in your blood through a process called glycation. The result is sticky molecules that make your red blood cells less flexible, less able to move smoothly through your vessels. Over time, these glycated cells clump together, increasing blood thickness and reducing oxygen delivery. Think of it like this. Your blood is supposed to glide, but after a meal high in refined carbs, it begins to drag. Those red blood cells, once round and supple, lose their smoothness. They bump against one another like rough stones, instead of rolling like marbles. It's a microscopic change, but it affects everything, from how your brain receives oxygen to how quickly you heal from a small cut. And if you combine refined carbs with processed meats, as in a breakfast sandwich, you create the perfect storm: high sodium, high fat, high sugar. This trifecta thickens your blood within hours of eating. Your insulin rises, your arteries stiffen, and your platelets become more adhesive. For younger bodies, recovery is quick. But after 50, metabolism slows, vessel elasticity decreases, and recovery can take days. It's not just about sugar or fat. It's about the cumulative chemistry of what you eat. A single refined meal won't harm you, but repeated daily, as it often is, it changes the baseline of your blood's behavior. That's why so many people over 50 experience unexplained fatigue after eating. The body isn't just digesting, it's fighting resistance within its own circulation. Refined carbohydrates also cause dehydration at a cellular level. When blood sugar spikes, your kidneys work harder to filter it out, pulling more water from your system. Less water means thicker plasma. That's why people with prediabetes or diabetes often struggle with circulation, not just because of sugar itself, but because of the dehydration it causes. But the story doesn't end with food. It extends to the mind. Many people over 50 grew up believing bread and pasta were signs of comfort, tradition, and family. It's difficult to unlearn that emotional attachment, yet health doesn't demand sacrifice. It asks for awareness. You don't have to abandon those traditions. You simply need to redefine them. Choose whole grains, oatmeal, or sprouted bread. These choices still honor the warmth of food while protecting your circulation. The third food on our list hides under the illusion of healthy fat: certain vegetable oils, particularly those high in omega-6 fatty acids like soybean, corn, and sunflower oil. You see them everywhere, in salad dressings, fried foods, and even so-called light snacks. The problem isn't fat itself, it's the imbalance it creates. Your body needs a delicate ratio between omega-3 and omega-6 fats. Omega-3s, found in salmon, flaxseed, and walnuts, keep your blood thin and reduce clotting risk. Omega-6s, when consumed excessively, do the opposite. They promote clotting and inflammation, and modern diets are drowning in omega-6s. The average ratio in the American diet is now 21, when it should ideally be around 2. 1. That imbalance turns your bloodstream into a stage for inflammation. When omega-6 fats dominate, they lead to the production of prothrombotic compounds, chemicals that make platelets more likely to stick together. Over time, this increases the chance of microclots and slow circulation. You might feel it as fogginess, fatigue, or cold extremities, but what's really happening is a microscopic traffic jam inside your blood vessels. The tricky part is that vegetable oils are hidden in most processed foods, from crackers to granola bars, even in foods labeled heart-healthy. It's not the oil itself that's toxic, but the imbalance. You can consume small amounts safely as long as you increase omega-3 intake to balance it, but few people do. The result is blood that's more prone to clot, especially after meals. Your arteries sense this imbalance immediately. They tighten slightly, your blood pressure rises, and the blood becomes denser. If you combine this with dehydration, salt, and sugar, which often happens in restaurant meals, your circulation can slow dramatically for hours afterward. Yet, once again, the body's resilience shines. Reintroducing omega-3 rich foods, reducing fried snacks, and replacing cheap cooking oils with olive or avocado oil can transform your blood chemistry within weeks. Studies show improved flow, lower clotting markers, and reduced inflammation in as little as 30 days. The message is simple: not all fats are enemies, but the wrong balance turns allies into threats. Finally, the fourth food, and perhaps the most deceptive, is sugar-sweetened beverages. Soda, sweetened tea, energy drinks, and even fruit juices labeled as natural, they all share one property. They flood your bloodstream with fructose and glucose faster than any solid food can. Liquid sugar is absorbed almost instantly, causing a rapid rise in blood sugar and insulin. The liver, overwhelmed, begins converting the excess sugar into fat, specifically triglycerides which circulate in the bloodstream. Higher triglycerides mean thicker plasma. The blood becomes richer in fat particles, making it harder to flow smoothly. In addition, the sudden sugar load increases platelet stickiness for up to 6 hours after drinking. That means if you have a sugary beverage at lunch and dinner, your blood spends most of the day in a thicker, more inflammatory state. The problem compounds with age, as insulin sensitivity decreases and recovery takes longer. Even fruit juice, which seems natural, can contain the sugar equivalent of several teaspoons per glass. Without the fiber from whole fruit, that sugar hits the bloodstream unchecked. You may not feel it, but your blood responds immediately. It thickens. Here's a simple way to picture it. Your blood is a river carrying oxygen and nutrients. Sugar is like pouring syrup into that river. It doesn't stop the flow entirely, but it slows it down, coats the edges, and leaves residue that builds over time. That's why people who frequently consume sugary drinks often feel sluggish, irritable, or dizzy. The brain isn't receiving the oxygen it needs efficiently. The irony is that many of these drinks are marketed as energy boosters, when in truth they steal energy from your future. They give a temporary rush, followed by a long period of thickened, oxygen-poor circulation. That's why quitting sugary drinks is often one of the fastest ways to feel lighter, clearer, and more energetic after 50. When you put all of this together, processed meats, refined carbohydrates, inflammatory oils, and sugary beverages, you start to see the pattern. They're not deadly on their own. They're dangerous because they combine effortlessly in everyday meals. A fast food breakfast sandwich, a lunch with fried food and soda, a dinner with white rice and sauce made from vegetable oil. These habits don't seem extreme, but they accumulate. Each meal slightly alters the viscosity of your blood until it becomes your new normal. And yet, here lies the power. Awareness transforms everything. The moment you realize how these foods operate, you can begin to neutralize their effects. You don't need to fear your plate. You just need to understand it. Your blood is not fixed. It's a living, responsive fluid that changes daily based on your choices. Every time you choose hydration over soda, greens over refined carbs, olive oil over corn oil, you thin your blood naturally. You give your heart relief. You give your brain more oxygen. You reduce the invisible resistance that ages you faster. The purpose of this knowledge is not to create guilt, it's to create liberation. Because when you understand what causes the problem, you no longer have to live in confusion. You can act. And when you act with intention, your body rewards you with clarity, warmth, and vitality. In the next phase, we'll explore what happens inside the body when blood thickens, how the cells struggle, how circulation slows, and what visible signs can warn you before it becomes dangerous. Because understanding the why behind the risk is what gives meaning to prevention. Now that we've uncovered which foods are responsible for thickening the blood, it's time to look deeper, beneath the surface, beneath the label, beneath what's visible, into what actually happens inside the body when blood loses its natural fluidity. Because understanding this process changes everything, it takes what feels abstract and makes it tangible. It shows how something you eat for breakfast can ripple through your body for hours, influencing the way your heart beats, how your brain functions, even how you feel when you wake up tomorrow. When you eat one of those 4 foods, processed meats, refined carbohydrates, inflammatory oils, or sugary beverages, a quiet transformation begins. Within minutes, your digestive system breaks the food down into its molecular components. Fats enter your bloodstream packaged as lipoproteins. Sugars rush into your circulation as glucose and fructose. Sodium floods your extracellular fluid. These particles interact with your blood cells and vessel walls in precise, predictable ways. And for someone over 50, whose blood vessels have already begun to lose elasticity, these small changes have a larger effect. The first system affected is the endothelial lining, the fragile, single-cell barrier that coats the inside of every artery, vein, and capillary. Think of it as the skin of your bloodstream. It senses what passes by. It reacts to pressure, nutrients, and toxins. When you eat foods high in saturated fat, sugar, or sodium, that lining becomes irritated. It begins to release inflammatory molecules such as cytokines and adhesion proteins. These act like tiny magnets, attracting platelets and white blood cells. Within hours, a smooth, slippery surface becomes slightly sticky. It's microscopic, but it changes the flow dynamics completely. Now imagine red blood cells, round, flexible, soft, gliding through your arteries. Under normal conditions, they move like synchronized swimmers, flowing in single file through even the smallest capillaries. But once inflammation begins, they encounter resistance. Their smooth passage becomes turbulent. They bump against one another, lose flexibility, and in some cases, stick together. Scientists call this rouleau formation, when red blood cells stack like coins. It's one of the early signs of thickened blood under a microscope. That stacking makes it harder for oxygen to reach your tissues. The brain, being the most oxygen-hungry organ, feels it first. You might experience subtle fogginess, slower recall, or that strange heaviness in the head that people often attribute to just getting older. But it's not age, it's circulation. When blood thickens, oxygen delivery slows. The brain begins to conserve energy, prioritizing survival over sharpness. That's why so many people after 50 notice a decline in mental clarity after certain meals. The next consequence happens in the heart. When blood is thicker, it takes more pressure to move it. The heart compensates by beating slightly harder. For a healthy person, this might go unnoticed. But for someone with borderline hypertension or atherosclerosis, this additional effort becomes cumulative strain. Over months and years, it can lead to left ventricular hypertrophy, a thickening of the heart muscle itself. Ironically, the heart thickens to push thickened blood. It's a vicious cycle. And this doesn't only happen in extreme cases. Studies show that even small increases in blood viscosity, within what doctors still consider normal, can raise the risk of cardiovascular events significantly. That's because the relationship between thickness and flow isn't linear. A 10% increase in viscosity can lead to a 30–40% reduction in flow. Your heart may still pump the same volume, but less of it reaches where it's needed most. Meanwhile, another process unfolds quietly. Microclot formation. When your blood moves slower, platelets have more time to interact. They sense that something isn't right, that circulation is sluggish, and they start doing what they're designed to do, clump together. But instead of sealing wounds, they form small, unnecessary clusters that float through the bloodstream. Most are harmless. Some dissolve naturally, but others settle in delicate areas, behind the eyes, in the brain's small vessels, or in the legs. They may not cause immediate symptoms, but they reduce efficiency. The body must work harder to deliver the same amount of oxygen. Over time, this adds up. The legs, especially, often reveal the first signs. If you've noticed that your calves feel tight, your feet colder than before, or that bruises take longer to fade, those can be signs of sluggish circulation. The veins and arteries in the lower body are already fighting gravity. Thicker blood only makes that fight harder. That's why sitting for long periods, especially after meals heavy in sodium and fat, can increase the risk of deep vein thrombosis in older adults. At the same time, inside the liver, another battle takes place. The liver acts as the filter for everything that enters your bloodstream. It processes fats, breaks down toxins, and regulates cholesterol. But when you consume foods rich in refined carbs and inflammatory oils, your liver becomes overwhelmed. It starts producing more triglycerides, the fat molecules that thicken your plasma. The higher your triglyceride levels, the denser your blood becomes. That density slows filtration even further, creating a feedback loop of sluggishness. This is why some people describe feeling heavy after a meal, not in the stomach, but everywhere, in the mind, in the limbs, in their energy. Their circulation has temporarily thickened, oxygen flow has dropped, and the heart is compensating. You don't feel pain, but you feel the weight. It's subtle but real. Now let's move to the nervous system. Thick blood affects it in ways few realize. Nerves depend on constant oxygen and nutrient delivery. When blood flow slows, the smallest nerves, especially in the hands and feet, begin to suffer. That's why people over 50 often experience tingling, numbness, or burning sensations, even without diabetes. The cause may not always be nerve damage itself, but reduced microcirculation. The nerves are starving, not broken. Restore the flow and sensitivity often returns. This process also explains why poor circulation contributes to cold hands and feet, restless legs, or even difficulty falling asleep. When blood doesn't circulate efficiently, your body struggles to regulate temperature and oxygenate tissues. Your sleep becomes lighter, your recovery slower. That's not coincidence. It's biology. Inside your immune system, another transformation occurs. The blood is your immune system's highway. Every white blood cell, every antibody, every healing molecule travels through it. When that highway slows, immune response slows. Wounds take longer to heal. Infections linger. The inflammatory environment caused by thick blood also misleads the immune system, keeping it in a state of mild overactivation. It's like running a car engine that's always slightly overheated. It still works, but its lifespan shortens. Even your skin reveals the story. Dullness, dryness, or slower healing after small cuts are outward signs of slower blood flow. The skin, being the farthest organ from your core, depends on strong circulation to stay healthy. When blood thickens, the nutrients that keep your skin elastic, like vitamin C, collagen, and oxygen, arrive in smaller amounts. That's why circulation health is one of the best predictors of youthful appearance. Now imagine this process not for a day, not for a week, but for years. Every meal that triggers inflammation or dehydration compounds the problem. Each episode of thickened blood leaves behind microscopic traces, tiny scars on the vessel walls, bits of trapped cholesterol, cells damaged by lack of oxygen. Over decades, those traces form the foundation for arterial plaque, high blood pressure, and fatigue that no amount of sleep can fix. But this isn't a story of inevitability. It's a story of awakening, because the moment you understand what's happening, you can reverse it. The same blood that thickens can be restored to flow freely again. The same arteries that stiffen can regain some elasticity. The same fatigue that lingers can lift. It begins with hydration. Water is your natural blood thinner. It dilutes plasma, lowers viscosity, and helps the kidneys flush out excess sodium. Many people over 50 simply don't drink enough water, especially in cooler weather when thirst signals weaken. They rely on coffee, tea, or juice, which often dehydrate more than they hydrate. The result is chronic mild dehydration, one of the most overlooked causes of thick blood. Then comes movement. Every step, every stretch, every deep breath stimulates circulation. Muscles act as pumps that push blood through veins, keeping it from stagnating. Sitting for hours after meals, something modern lifestyles encourage, allows heavier blood to pool in the lower body. A 10-minute walk after eating can reverse that effect completely, but the real healing begins with nutrition, with the foods that thin, cleanse, and protect your blood naturally. Nature, in her wisdom, provides everything needed to counteract modern habits. Garlic, ginger, turmeric, dark leafy greens, and omega-3 rich fish are some of the body's best allies. They reduce platelet aggregation, calm inflammation, and promote nitric oxide production, the molecule that relaxes blood vessels and improves flow. Garlic, for instance, contains allicin, a compound that inhibits platelet stickiness. It doesn't just flavor food, it restores smoothness to your bloodstream. Ginger improves circulation by relaxing the muscles around blood vessels. Leafy greens like spinach and kale are rich in nitrates that your body converts into nitric oxide. Each of these foods is a natural antidote to the thickening effects of processed meats and sugary drinks. When you replace inflammation with nourishment, your blood feels it almost immediately. Within days, you might notice lighter energy, warmer extremities, and clearer focus. That's not imagination. That's biology in real time. Your blood is adapting. The power of this process lies in consistency, not perfection. The human body is astonishingly forgiving. You don't need to eliminate everything at once. Even reducing harmful foods by half while increasing hydration and movement can yield measurable improvements. Blood viscosity drops, blood pressure stabilizes, energy returns. But you have to see the pattern clearly. The body doesn't punish, it responds. Every symptom, every ache, every moment of fatigue is feedback. It's your body speaking the only language it knows. Thick blood is not an enemy. It's a message. It's saying, "Help me flow again." So if you're feeling tired lately, if your mind feels slower or your hands colder, pause before blaming age. Ask yourself what your blood might be experiencing. Is it hydrated? Is it free of inflammation? Is it carrying oxygen easily, or is it fighting resistance with every beat? Once you start seeing your body as an ecosystem rather than a machine, your perspective changes. You stop forcing it to perform and start helping it to thrive. You realize that health isn't about restriction, it's about rhythm. The rhythm of what you eat, how you move, how you rest and how you think. When those rhythms are in balance, your blood flows freely. In the next phase, we'll explore the relief, the practical science-backed strategies to restore fluidity, balance viscosity, and reclaim that sense of vitality. Because knowing the risk is only half the journey. The other half is learning how to heal. And that healing begins not in fear, but in calm awareness. Now that you understand what happens inside your body, when your blood begins to thicken, it's time to turn that knowledge into something liberating. A calm, science-based roadmap that helps your body restore its natural flow. Because this isn't just about avoiding danger, it's about rediscovering vitality. That lightness in your chest when you breathe deeply. The warmth returning to your hands, the energy that greets you in the morning instead of the heaviness that used to linger. The beauty of the human body is that it always wants to return to balance. Every cell, every heartbeat, every drop of blood is designed for harmony. When you give it what it needs, it doesn't just recover, it transforms. It begins to flow again, as if grateful for the chance. And that flow is what makes you feel alive. So how do you help your blood move freely again? It begins not with restriction, but with understanding. With knowing how each choice affects your inner river. You don't need extreme diets or complicated regimens. You need consistency. Small, smart habits practiced daily can change the very texture of your blood. The first key is hydration. Not just drinking water, but hydrating intentionally. Blood plasma is nearly 90% water, and when you don't replenish it properly, your blood naturally thickens. Many people over 50 live in a state of mild dehydration without realizing it. Thirst cues diminish with age, and we often mistake them for hunger or fatigue. But when you begin to hydrate consciously, sipping throughout the day instead of gulping occasionally, you feel the difference almost instantly. Think of it as tuning your bloodstream. Every glass of water dilutes the viscosity, helping your heart pump with less strain. And the best hydration doesn't come from water alone. It comes from foods rich in water and electrolytes, cucumbers, oranges, watermelon, spinach, and soups made from vegetables. Even herbal teas like hibiscus or chamomile can support hydration while offering mild circulation benefits. But hydration is only part of the story. What truly transforms the blood is the quality of what you eat. The same way thickening foods exist, so do thinning foods, natural allies that gently, safely, and consistently reduce viscosity without the side effects of medication. Take garlic, for example. Its compound, allicin, naturally reduces platelet aggregation, the tendency of platelets to stick together. It doesn't suppress your body's ability to clot when needed. It simply restores balance, ensuring your blood doesn't become overly adhesive. Regular intake of garlic, whether raw, cooked, or in supplement form, can improve circulation within weeks. Then there's ginger, a root so powerful that traditional medicine has used it for centuries to promote blood flow. Modern research confirms what ancient healers already knew. Ginger helps relax blood vessel walls, reduce inflammation, and improve oxygen delivery. When taken as tea or grated into meals, it becomes a natural circulation enhancer. Another remarkable food group is dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, arugula, beet greens. They're rich in nitrates, which your body converts into nitric oxide, a molecule that signals blood vessels to relax and widen. This process, called vasodilation, allows blood to flow more easily and prevents the thick, resistant pressure that tires the heart. You can think of nitric oxide as your blood's lubricant, invisible but essential. When levels are high, circulation feels effortless. When they drop, blood thickens and arteries stiffen. That's why a diet rich in greens and beets, even a simple daily salad or smoothie, can noticeably improve energy levels and warmth in the extremities. Omega-3 fatty acids are another cornerstone. Found in salmon, sardines, flaxseed, chia seeds, and walnuts, omega-3s naturally reduce triglycerides, one of the main contributors to thicker plasma. They also make red blood cells more flexible, allowing them to move through tiny capillaries without clumping. It's one of the reasons why cultures that consume high amounts of omega-3s have lower rates of cardiovascular disease. And while supplements exist, whole foods are usually more effective. Eating salmon twice a week or adding a tablespoon of flaxseed to your breakfast can shift your omega ratio within a month. Remember, blood isn't just about avoiding the bad, it's about feeding it what keeps it alive. Then there's movement, the most underrated circulatory medicine in existence. You don't need to run marathons or lift heavy weights. Even a simple 20-minute walk after meals can transform your circulation. Movement acts like an internal massage for your veins and arteries. Every step contracts muscles, pushing blood back toward the heart. It prevents stagnation, reduces pooling in the legs, and keeps the entire system active. When combined with hydration and nutrition, movement becomes the third pillar of blood health. Imagine your blood as a river. Food determines its purity, water determines its volume, movement determines its speed. When all three are in harmony, your heart no longer strains. It glides. Let's not forget breathing, something so simple yet so powerful. Deep, diaphragmatic breathing increases oxygen in your blood and reduces carbon dioxide buildup. It signals your body to relax, lowers blood pressure, and improves circulation to the brain. Just 5 minutes of slow breathing, in through the nose for 4 seconds, out through the mouth for 6, can thin your blood naturally by improving oxygen exchange. Stress, on the other hand, does the opposite. Chronic stress releases adrenaline and cortisol, hormones that tighten blood vessels and make platelets more active. It's part of the body's ancient survival response, helpful if you're escaping danger, harmful if you're just sitting in traffic. Managing stress isn't optional after 50, it's essential. Meditation, nature walks, music, or quiet moments of reflection, they all reduce stress-induced viscosity. The next step is reducing inflammatory triggers, because even the best diet can't compensate for constant irritation. Limit processed meats, refined carbohydrates, sugary drinks, and cheap vegetable oils, not out of fear, but out of respect for your body's rhythm. Replace them gradually. For example, instead of frying eggs in sunflower oil, try olive oil. Instead of drinking soda, infuse water with lemon and mint. Instead of white bread, choose oats or whole grains. Each small substitution is an act of kindness toward your bloodstream. There's also the question of balance. People often think health means extreme discipline, cutting out everything they enjoy. But that mindset leads to stress, and stress itself thickens blood. True health is about equilibrium. If you enjoy a treat occasionally, balance it with hydration, greens, or movement. Your body doesn't demand perfection. It craves care. Let's talk about signs of progress, because they matter. When you begin restoring flow, your body lets you know. You'll notice your hands and feet are warmer. Your energy feels steadier throughout the day. Brain fog begins to lift. Sleep deepens. Even your skin tone becomes more vibrant as oxygen delivery improves. These aren't coincidences. They're confirmations that your blood has regained its lightness. For those already on medication such as blood thinners, it's important to understand that diet can complement, not replace, in your doctor's guidance. You should never stop medication without supervision, but improving your nutrition can often help reduce dependency over time. Discuss every change with your healthcare provider. The goal is synergy, not substitution. Now, there's one more aspect we rarely talk about: temperature and circulation rhythm. Blood flow naturally slows when you're sedentary, dehydrated, or exposed to cold. That's why older adults often feel colder, not because their environment changed, but because their internal circulation slowed. Simple habits like warm showers, light stretching, or even foot baths in the evening can reawaken microcirculation. These gentle rituals signal your body to keep blood moving during rest. You may have heard people talk about thinning blood with medication, but nature provides its own elegant ways to achieve that balance safely. Foods like turmeric contain curcumin, which helps reduce clot formation. Cinnamon supports glucose control, preventing sugar-induced thickening. Pomegranate juice improves nitric oxide levels, promoting smooth arterial flow. These are not trends. They're time-tested tools of natural medicine. And yet the greatest tool of all remains awareness, because awareness changes behavior, not through fear, but through clarity. Once you understand how your bloodstream responds to your choices, you stop seeing food as temptation and start seeing it as influence. You realize that every sip, every bite, every habit either helps your blood flow or hinders it. And when you start choosing flow, everything else improves: energy, mood, focus, resilience. If you've ever stood up too quickly and felt lightheaded, or woken up with tingling hands, or noticed that your legs swell slightly after sitting too long, those are whispers from your body. They're not signs of decline. They're signals. They're saying, I need movement, I need hydration, I need ease. Listen to them. Respond gently. That's how healing begins. Not with control, but with care. When you begin to live in harmony with your circulation, your entire physiology changes. Your blood pressure stabilizes. Your heart rate finds rhythm. Your metabolism wakes up. Even your emotions feel more balanced. Because when oxygen and nutrients move freely, your brain receives everything it needs to stay calm, focused, and resilient. And this harmony extends beyond health. It affects how you age, how you think, how you connect with others. People often underestimate how deeply circulation influences quality of life. It's not just about preventing disease, it's about preserving joy. When your blood flows well, you feel lighter, more alert, more alive. You engage with life differently. That's why restoring circulation isn't just a medical decision. It's a lifestyle awakening. It's about giving your body back its rhythm, its grace, its effortless flow. And that starts with a single decision: the decision to care. As you move forward, don't think of this as restriction. Think of it as rebalancing. You're not giving things up. You're reclaiming your energy. You're teaching your body how to flow again. And that flow, that inner current, is what keeps you young. In the next and final phase, we'll bring it all together. How to turn awareness into lifelong empowerment, because once you understand your blood, you understand your life force. And when you learn to protect it, everything changes. When you reach a certain point in life, somewhere after 50, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, your priorities shift. You stop chasing short bursts of energy and start valuing consistency. You stop trying to feel young and start trying to feel well. You begin to understand that longevity is not just about living longer, but living better. And nothing defines that better than the state of your blood, that quiet river within you that never stops moving, never rests, never complains. You've learned what makes it heavy. You've learned what slows it down. You've seen how simple foods, the ones we trust most, can quietly alter the rhythm of your heart. But here, in this final chapter, is where everything changes. Because now you know enough to take control. The journey toward light, free-flowing blood is not about fear, it's about mastery. Calm, confident mastery of your own body. The kind that doesn't come from reading labels obsessively or counting every calorie, but from listening, truly listening, to what your body tells you. Every symptom you felt was never random. The fatigue, the cold hands, the mental fog, they were all messages. The moment you begin responding with awareness, the body rewards you. And this is where empowerment begins. Take a moment to visualize your bloodstream now. Not as a medical concept, but as something alive. Picture it running through you from your heart to your fingertips, from your brain to your toes. See it as a vibrant, glistening river of life. Each drop carrying oxygen, warmth, clarity. Each vessel opening slightly wider, welcoming flow. That image is not fantasy. It's what your body strives for every single day. Your only task is to help it. Empowerment begins with consistency, not intensity. When you drink enough water every morning, you give your blood a lighter start to the day. When you move, even gently, you encourage the natural rhythm that keeps it smooth. When you choose whole foods instead of processed ones, you give your body information it can use, not toxins it must fight. These are not small actions. They are quiet revolutions taking place inside you. Many people over 50 carry silent fears about their health, fears of heart attacks, strokes, sudden fatigue, decline. But fear without understanding leads to paralysis. Awareness, on the other hand, leads to power. You now know that much of that risk begins with what thickens the blood, and that every day offers a chance to reverse it. Think of this transformation in 3 layers. The first layer is the physical one, changing what you eat, how you hydrate, and how you move. This is where most people stop, but it's only the beginning. The second layer is emotional, shifting your relationship with food, with habits, with the body itself. No longer seeing it as something that betrays you, but as something that reflects you. The third layer is spiritual, though not necessarily religious. It's the deeper understanding that your body and mind are not separate, that how you treat one echoes in the other. When your blood flows freely, your thoughts do too. Clarity replaces confusion, calm replaces restlessness, your energy stabilizes, your confidence grows. Because vitality doesn't come from supplements or secrets, it comes from alignment. When your internal world is in rhythm, everything external begins to follow. Now let's talk about one of the most overlooked factors in blood health: sleep. Good sleep is circulation's best friend. When you sleep deeply, your body enters repair mode. It cleanses waste from your bloodstream, balances hormones, and rebuilds vessel elasticity. But poor sleep or inconsistent sleep keeps your blood in a state of subtle stress. Cortisol remains high, inflammation lingers, and viscosity increases overnight. That's why waking up exhausted or puffy is often a sign that your blood didn't get the chance to rest. You can support this repair process naturally by creating rituals that calm the nervous system. Dim lights, deep breathing, herbal tea, quiet reflection. When the mind slows, the blood follows. They are intertwined. The second element of empowerment is awareness of subtle warning signs. Your body often whispers before it screams. If your legs feel heavy after meals, your hands are cold, or you bruise easily. Those are signs of circulation imbalance, not diseases, but signals. Respond with compassion, not panic. Hydrate. Walk. Breathe. Adjust your meal next time. Each small correction builds resilience. Another powerful habit is fasting. Not extreme fasting, but gentle, intentional breaks from food. When you give your digestive system rest, your blood clears. Insulin levels stabilize, triglycerides fall, and the body shifts from storage mode to cleansing mode. Even a 12-hour overnight fast, finishing dinner by 7 p.m. and eating breakfast at 7 a.m., can improve blood viscosity within weeks. Your ancestors did this naturally. Your body remembers how. And while we're speaking of ancestors, consider how far we've drifted from nature. We've surrounded ourselves with abundance, but starved ourselves of balance. We've filled our plates, but forgotten the rhythm of hunger and fullness. Modern life thickens the blood not only through food, but through pace. Too fast, too constant, too stimulated. Reclaiming flow requires slowing down, not just in your arteries, but in your days. Walk without purpose. Eat without screens. Breathe without urgency. Those moments of stillness aren't luxuries, they're medicine. They return your body to the rhythm it was built for, a rhythm of ebb and flow, tension and release, motion and rest. Empowerment also comes from knowledge, not just of what to avoid, but of what to embrace. Let's recap gently, not as a warning, but as wisdom. You now know the 4 foods that silently thicken your blood: processed meats, refined carbohydrates, inflammatory oils, and sugary beverages. But you also know their antidotes: hydration, movement, omega-3s, greens, garlic, ginger, turmeric, and calm. This is not a list to memorize. It's a philosophy to live by. Balance heavy with light. Balance dryness with water. Balance stagnation with movement. You don't have to be perfect. You only have to be aware. Perfection exhausts the spirit. Awareness energizes it. As you continue this journey, Notice how your relationship with health changes. It stops being about restriction and becomes about respect. You begin to eat not to fill, but to nourish. You move not to burn calories, but to circulate life. You rest not to escape fatigue, but to rebuild strength. These subtle shifts change everything. For many people over 50, the biggest challenge isn't lack of knowledge, it's lack of belief that change is still possible. They think, it's too late, my body's already set. But science tells a different story. Within just 4 to 6 weeks of changing diet and lifestyle, measurable improvements occur in blood viscosity, oxygen delivery, and arterial flexibility. It's never too late to flow again. In fact, your body may respond faster now than when you were younger because experience has made you wiser. You know how to listen. You know how to choose. That's the advantage of age. Clarity. So let this be the mindset that carries you forward. Light blood, light life. The two are inseparable. When your circulation flows effortlessly, your mind follows. Your emotions soften. You handle stress with grace. You recover faster from setbacks. You feel more like yourself, not the tired version shaped by years of imbalance, but the vibrant one that was always there beneath the surface. You might even begin to notice something subtle yet profound, a growing sense of calm confidence. That comes from knowing that you are no longer at the mercy of hidden habits. You understand the language of your body. You've become fluent in its signals. That fluency is what allows you to age without fear. Aging, after all, is not decay. It's refinement. It's the process of learning what truly matters. And in health, nothing matters more than circulation. Because circulation is connection. It's what links your heart to your brain, your breath to your movement, your past to your future. It's what allows life to keep unfolding inside you, moment by moment, heartbeat by heartbeat. As you take this knowledge into your daily life, remember, healing is not an event, it's a rhythm. It's found in small, steady acts of care. The water you drink, the walk you take, the meal you prepare, the breath you release. Each choice keeps your river clear. Each habit keeps your heart light. Each day you choose awareness over neglect. Your body thanks you, quietly, faithfully, endlessly. There's something sacred about that. The realization that health isn't something you chase, but something you nurture. You don't fight for vitality, you allow it. You make space for it by removing what blocks it, physically, mentally, emotionally. So from this moment forward, when you look at your plate, don't just see food, see chemistry, see energy, see movement. Ask yourself one question: will this choice help my blood flow? That single question asked daily can reshape decades of habits. It can mean the difference between fatigue and vitality, between worry and peace, between existing and thriving. And when you notice yourself feeling clearer, lighter, calmer, remember, it's not magic, it's alignment, it's the reward of flow. Your blood is the story of your life. Every experience, every emotion, every choice leaves a trace within it. But you are the author, and today you've learned to write a better ending. One where your heart beats freely, your mind stays sharp, and your body feels alive with purpose again. Because in the end, vitality isn't found in youth, it's found in flow. And that flow, that effortless, graceful rhythm, has been inside you all along, waiting for you to return to it.